All right. Hello and welcome everyone to Law at the Library, a partnership between the Chicago Bar Association, the Evanston Public Library, and the Chicago Public Library. My name is Lorena Neal. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the legal literacy librarian at the Evanston Public Library. We're delighted to have everyone here tonight for this special Pride Month presentation on LGBTQIA plus the law, taking pride in your future. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the format for this evening, and then we will get started. I will introduce our speaker, who will then give the presentation, followed by a question and answer period. If you have any questions for our speaker, please type them into the Q&A window, which you will find near the bottom of your screen. You can also use the chat feature to ask your questions if you prefer. I will collect the questions as they come up and give our presenter the opportunity to answer them at the end, so feel free to add your questions whenever you think of them. If you have any technical issues or questions, you can feel free to direct those to me in the chat as well. Law at the Library is taking the summer off. We have a little vacation, but we will be back in September with a whole new set of topics. And in the meantime, you can always see videos of previous presentations on the Evanston Public Library YouTube page, which I will post a link to in the chat in just a moment here. We do also have a list of general free and low-cost legal resources on the Evanston Public Library website, so I'll add those links to the chat as well. Our speaker tonight is Kevin Lichtenberg, he, him, a founding partner at Heffler Lichtenberg in Chicago. He concentrates his practice on guardianship and probate, elder law, mental health and risk management, and child welfare and adoptions. He is regularly appointed as guardian ad litem and counsel for respondents in guardianship proceedings before the probate court, and he is also a member of DCFS's statewide adoption attorney panel. Kevin is an active member of the legal community, volunteering his time to multiple legal service agencies that assist low-income individuals. In 2016, Kevin was appointed to Loyola University Chicago School of Law's Board of Governors for his first term, and most recently was elected as president. He teaches at Loyola University Chicago School of Law for the school's pilot course Professional Identity Formation for all first-year law students since 2018. He served as chair for the Chicago Bar Association's Committee on Elder and Disability Law last year, and he participates in the Chicago Volunteer Legal Services Pro Bono Program and serves on the Illinois State Bar Association Standing Committee on Judicial Evaluations for Cook County. He previously served on the Misericordia Emerging Leaders Board. Kevin received both his master's degree and Juris Doctor from Loyola University Chicago School of Law. Welcome, Kevin, and I'm going to turn things over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you, Lorena. And thank you, everybody, for attending. I hope that this is an entertaining and informative session. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. So special thank you to the Evanston Public Library, Chicago Public Library, and the Chicago Bar Association. Happy Pride Month, everybody, and welcome to Law at the Library. Today, we are here to talk about the topic is LGBTQIA plus the law, take pride in your future. The event description is on the website, but what I'm going to do is, if I have my technology working, I have a couple of slides I put up there. Visuals are always helpful. And I just need to go off video really quickly. I need to bend down to my printer, which is down there, to get my notes. Hold on one sec. Yeah, I got it. I usually don't use a ton of paper, but here we are. Okay, let me get this going. And all right, let's see if my screen, let's see if everybody can see that. Okay, so what I want to talk about tonight, the format that Lorena mentioned is that, oh, and I see our cat is already making a move over here, so I might have a guest lecturer, not lecturer, but you all get the idea, Melon. She just had her birthday yesterday. She's 17 or 18 years old. She'll make an appearance here in just a minute. Here, we'll get her. There's Melon. Hi, Melon. Say hi to everybody. She does this in court quite frequently as well. So the event description is the challenges the LGBTQ plus individual may experience when planning for later in life, strategies that can be used to build strong relationships, building an effective care plan, what documents, resources, and information are needed to help ensure a secure future. The format will be is we'll spend about 30 minutes in a presentation type setting, and then, as Lorena mentioned, we will open it up for questions and hopefully answers. I will say is that, yes, as Lorena mentioned, I am a lawyer. I can't give specific legal advice, but I can talk about general situations and information. Sometimes the cat, sorry, it's knocking a lot of things over. Sometimes there is a tendency, oh, you have a lawyer. Here's a situation, and we can't give curbside consults. That's a big no-no, and it's a liability issue. Okay, so Lorena went into a little bit of background about who am I. That described a lot of my professional career. I live on the north side of Chicago in Lincoln Square. Been happily married. I should know this. I think 13 years. That's what judge that I know married us. We had a family party a couple months after that. But in any event, we've been together 13. It'll be 14 years in August. There we go. I knew I had it somewhere in there. I'd be in trouble. A little bit more about my background. I love working in this community. I practice primarily in guardianships, adults with disabilities, also minors, estates. Just in Chicago, I practice also in the collar counties. DuPage, I'll be there next Monday. Kane County, I'll be there tomorrow and on Friday. And when I say be there, we can do a lot by Zoom video conference, and that is wonderful for access to justice, access for individuals with disabilities, their families, others. Instead of taking a full or a half day off of work and paying $60 a park downtown Chicago, for example, you can log in on your phone on a break at work or something like that and be in and out within 20 minutes. So I practice in a lot of other counties, including I've done Lake County as well, McHenry County, Will County. That's a little bit more about me. One thing that was not included in the bio is I am a Wheaton Warrenville South graduate. I hold a little bit of a grudge to Evanston Township High School for defeating my sister's soccer team in the state championship in 2002. I have not forgotten that, but I'm happy to be associated with, or at least be before you all with Evanston. So there we go. So let's go on to the next and let's get a little bit into the meat. Discussion topics today that Lorena, thank you for helping me put these together. We'll go through each in turn, and I'll have a couple of comments. Maybe these will foster some questions for you all. So why the LGBTQIA plus community is especially impacted by this. And before we get to that, I wanted to mention to everybody that the acronym, what goes through it. It changes, as those that are aware. So this acronym pertains collectively to people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning their gender, intersex, asexual, or their allies. So I just wanted to mention that sometimes it can be a little unwieldy for individuals, but I think that it's helpful to always look at a definition. As lawyers, that's what part of our training. Look at the definition section, and that's always helpful. Okay, so why this community is especially impacted by this? We see, and especially in a big metropolitan area like Chicago and Chicagoland, a lot of individuals that are vulnerable and alone. Think of familial relationships, potential strains. Maybe that's with parents, siblings, other family members. And so there is an element of isolation within this community that there are, not to say that's not in other communities, but is unique to our community. And with that said, there are, hold on one second, the cat is about to, I'm going to get in trouble. Sorry. Go, Bella, go. There she goes. So when you also add in that marriage was not available for so long in this community, it's really a vulnerable population. I shouldn't say I see it more, but there is a noticeable number of individuals that I'm aware of that are being investigated for self-neglect, exploitation by others. In the guardianship arena, adult protective services may be involved as well. So that's why this is a special community, a special population that we're not getting any younger, and the future happens. One of the things that I think is helpful and to be mindful of is that professional care managers that are sensitive to the LGBTQIA plus community are out there, and that number is growing. And that don't just think of that just for those that are without close loved ones or those that prefer others, but think about those that have loved ones that are afar. Maybe that family member works with a local care agency to be the boots on the ground, help develop rapport in that relationship. That can go a long way. I'm proud to say that the professional care managers are awesome. They're out there. And I hesitate to provide certain names. I don't want that to be seen as an endorsement. And inevitably, I might forget one or two, and I don't want to slight anybody. If anybody on today's meeting or in the future would like to reach out to me for my suggestion, and that might be specific on the circumstance, maybe geographic where the individual is, feel free. On the final slide, I will have my contact information. I welcome each of you and all of you to send an email to me if you do have a question. But I wanted to mention they're out there. They do great work. There's varying costs associated, and it varies, but they're awesome. And those are the trained professionals, whether they are a member of the LGBTQIA plus community or they are sensitive to working with individuals in that community, they're trained to do so, and they can help plug in to various programming within the community that may be helpful on the situation as it is. Okay, so they're out there. Feel free to reach out to me, but browse on your own. You can Google or a web search for that information and get a feel for what's out there. Community resources I am aware of. I suggest checking out like Center of on Halstead's website. That's fantastic, and that can lead to a lot of other programs and supports out there. The stateofillinois.gov website. I really will talk about resources and the need for doing your traditional estate planning. But for starters, there are statutorily, and what I mean by that is the law will have outlined what goes into a state created form, power of attorney for healthcare, power of attorney for property. One quick note about that is a power of attorney for property is financial. It doesn't mean real estate property that some of us might think of. They are publicly available. I would encourage going to the source. I would go to an illinois.gov website. You might find them commercially available as well. And those are for starters. Something is better than nothing. You do not need an attorney to put in place advanced directives such as powers of attorney for property, powers of attorney for healthcare. Even if you are an individual that is a member of the LGBTQIA population, is married, they want to put their spouse, think about succession. Who do you trust? Who do you want to put forward? Something is better than nothing. And those documents are free to access and to execute. The only barrier, I would say, to those is a notary public is required on the power of attorney for property and a disinterested witness. What I mean by that, disinterested, is a non-relative or a non-named agent under either one of those documents. So check them out. They're publicly available. I would encourage you to look at it. You can download the PDFs. You might be able to fill it out on the computer and get those executed. Once they are executed, and by that signed, I would give one to your agent, whoever is named, your medical provider, and store one safely. Maybe you have a safe deposit box or something, but that is a prudent way to go forward. And ultimately, if you do engage an attorney at some point, mention that you've done it. The creation of new powers of attorney, which fall under broadly an estate plan, there is language in that. I don't want to get too legalistic, but there is language that there's an automatic revocation of a prior document. But mention it, it's helpful. And speaking of attorneys that do estate planning, I don't do estate planning, but I know a lot of people who do and are good at it. And estate planning broadly is a will that pours over into a trust and two powers of attorney for healthcare and for property. It used to be that you would just have a will and powers of attorney. Trusts have been more prevalent, I would say, the point being of those is they can be administered outside the confines of a court, a judge having to rule that this will is admissible and it's going to take 12 to 16 months to administer a person's estate without a trust. Again, I don't do the drafting, but that is generally the estate planning package, or so to speak, for individuals. I'm going to take a quick second here. I'm just going to log out of this. I saw two questions come in. Lorena, do you need me to look those up now, or let me see.
No, I'm keeping track on my end. So if you want to
All
go
right.
through, we have had some comments that the slideshow is flashing for some people, so I don't know what's happening there. So
maybe it was Melon the cat that pressed a special button.
it could be. Cats are notorious for these things.
I'm in presentation mode. Do you want me to get out of it? Maybe that'll help.
It's not showing presentation mode on my end. It's showing just sort of the first slide flashing not in presentation. So I don't know if it's
weird.
a Zoom issue or let's see.
Let me go to stop share and I'm going to restart. Okay, let's see if that works.
Sounds good.
All right, let's see. Technology. Did you all see that? What was that attorney? He was in like a legal hearing and then he put on the filter and the cat. He had to say, I am not a cat.
Face. Yes.
All right. Let me try again.
You could be the cat. We don't know.
I could
be the cat wearing a human filter. So.
All right. So now if I go into this, do you see a slide?
No, it's just showing the overview again, and it's flashing. So
that's really strange. I wonder why.
Yes,
maybe
I don't
compatibility.
know why it's doing that.
Sorry, everybody.
That's all right. I think maybe if you just click individually on the slides, if you tried like the third slide there,
like
then we can see the individual. Yeah, that I can see anyway. So
okay, I'm sorry, everybody.
That's all right.
Well. You think you're all prepared and you get everything going and then this happens. I'm so sorry. All right, I'm just going to leave it like this then. I know it's not as nice looking, but okay. Okay. All right. Where was I? Oh, I was talking about community resources. The next one that I wanted to mention was use of language and roles. I was in a seminar earlier today and it was about it was put on by the Lesbian and Gay Bar Association of Chicago. There was a judge and other presenters that talked about transgender rights. And one of the things that we discuss, and I think about often, is the use of language in your writing, and depending on whatever capacity. I try to do this as a lawyer, is if I have not met the individual, whether it's the person under guardianship, the respondent, or the ward, depending on procedure where the case is at, or even in correspondence, email correspondence, I haven't met the individual, I use they, them. I don't want to assume that the person that I'm speaking about identifies as a certain gender. And what I mean by that is, I think it shows you lead by example. When I do legal writing, if I let's say, for example, the individual's first name is Ashley. Okay. Some might assume that that is somebody that identifies she, her. If I was to draft a legal document and say her family or her husband, I'm making some assumptions. Maybe I haven't met that individual. Maybe they've corresponded and indicated that um, they identify as she, her, and has a husband, and I could use that. But if I have not, they, them, and I lead with that in my legal writing. And I think that goes a long way. I've had comments positively from individuals that are, that read the pleadings, read my court papers, uh, that comment on that. And you lead by example. I when the first thing out of the gate you see, again using an example of somebody named Ashley, is her husband. I'm like, well, have you met this individual and their spouse? Because it can be wrong. Uh, I have, I think as Lorena mentioned, I teach at Loyola Chicago School of Law, the professional identity formation class, and I've been doing it 7 years, and I've twice misgendered a student, and I apologize, and we have a nice conversation. And both times the students have approached me and thanked me for modeling using language that is open to what that individual identifies as. Use their name, use they, them until that individual has identified what they prefer. I think that's a safe way to doing it. So that's what I mean by use of language and roles. I think that's important to try to lead with that. Another thing I wanted to talk about briefly was when minor children are involved. There are minor guardianship forms that do not require a judge or court involvement or a judge. There's a statutorily publicly available form called a short-term guardianship form. Scenario that we see that is parents are going to be out of pocket. Maybe they're out of country, although with technology and things these days, it's not as prevalent to be totally out of pocket, I should say. But that's a way for, and it's valid for a period up to 365 days, doesn't have a judicial involvement where you are delegating authority over onto another individual. That is really helpful. Maybe adoption, if there is a parent-child relationship. I'm proud to say that Illinois is, I believe, the first state in the country, and this is back in the early 90s, that had same-sex adoptions. That's pretty impressive. And I'm on the Department of Children and Family Services attorney adoption panel. The adoption attorneys are fabulous. They're wonderful. They're kind. I've been doing it for a long time. And by that, I mean since about 2014. And I have never once had an issue with the judge seeming put off or caught off guard, I should say, by a same-sex couple that wishes to adopt a minor. Never. We are very blessed to be in this community that we are. But that's not everywhere. But I will just say that in Illinois and Chicagoland, we are. And I am very fortunate of that. I never want to take that for granted. But anyway, that is, so I mentioned about the short-term guardianship form, adoptions. I don't practice in family law, but again, if you have questions on an attorney to reach out to, whether for estate planning or for family law, I'm happy to provide in referrals or pass a name or two along if you see fit. And then lastly on their discussion topics is finding safe and affirming community for LGBTQIA plus elders. That is an area that is burgeoning, right? So those that might be familiar, there was a retirement community that was built. There are several, but it was in the news quite a bit. The old Chicago police station on the northwest corner of Addison and Broadway, there was the use, the facade and the building is still there, but they built up. But that is a retirement community. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 stories, but it's really nice. They have wonderful programming. I volunteered through the Chicago Bar Association there, but they're a very warm community. Additionally, other care facilities throughout the Chicagoland area. For example, I was at one on Friday of last week where there was a Pride event, and for individuals that are of the LGBTQIA community, I think for them to be accepting, maybe family members that are visiting and others, it definitely brought a smile to my face to have been there. I also got free candy out of going, so I really enjoyed my time there. That's the last of the formal presentation or topics that I wanted to mention. I'd be really interested to open it up to the floor, and by that, the virtual floor, and receive questions, open up for discussions. This slide has my contact information. Feel free to send an email to me. Check out our website that should have a link to email as well. And below is my phone number. Feel free to contact me. And again, I'm not trying to be evasive by not providing too much specifics, names, because I don't want to exclude anyone. I made up a word there, anybody. But I also I'm cognizant not to provide curbside consults, as I mentioned earlier, and give specific advice that maybe you take to heart, or you apply, and then something was misconstrued, or I maybe relayed something. So that's it that I have for the formal part of this program. I see that we're at 6:32. I'm happy to open it up. I'm happy to talk about other things. Lorena, tell me what I did and did wrong, or what else you want me to expound on. I'm going to stop sharing. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yes. Well, first you
All
trash
right.
talk ETHS, which I
I
mean,
did.
you
I
know,
had
I
to.
will, I will.
I had to a little bit. I felt guilty if my allegiance. What did they say? We're sempre tigris, always a
There
tiger.
you
So I
go.
don't know.
All right. Well, we'll forgive that for you.
Okay.
We do have from the Q&A. I'm going to paste into the chat. Someone recommended Citywide Pride Chicago as a
Nice.
potential resource for more information going forward. We do have a question now to learn about more about civil unions in Illinois. Are civil unions still, can you explain the difference between, say, a civil union, marriage? Does Illinois still distinguish, and where can you learn about that?
Well, civil unions came first. I don't
Hmm.
practice in matrimonial law or family law, so I don't know the legal specifics. I am married. Um, I don't want to make guesses. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, I will say, in a in my role, my practice of guardianship for adults with disabilities and those, um, there is civil union partner or
Hmm.
married spouse. There is a difference when I see it. I don't think one or the other is excluded in those. When I do see it, if you're a civil union, I will say I've been practicing since 2011. In all of my time, I've never had somebody say, "Well, we are in a civil union, not a marriage."
Hmm. Because I believe that's what, 2015 was that I want
I
to
should know that. I don't know. It took me a while to figure out how long. So my husband and I, we got married in 2015. We've been together since
say.
2011. And I think when we got married in 2015, Illinois passed same-sex marriage, and then shortly thereafter was the U.S. Supreme Court,
Right, the
Ogre befell.
Ogre fell, yeah. Mhm.
I think so. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be evasive. I don't
Mhm.
know too much of the difference, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I believe they are, my recollection is that they are equivalent in terms of, you know, the rights that are packaged along with them. Um,
Mhm.
so civil
I
union
still see it.
obviously
Yeah, I
has, yes,
still
yeah.
see
Hmm.
it in spaces. Your
Hmm.
civil union partner and spouse. I don't want to belabor that too
Right.
much, but I do see
Hmm.
it
Yeah,
differentiated.
some states did have civil unions before they allowed marriage. Technically, they made a separate category, but effectively the same bundle of rights that were
What did
included.
late Justice
Mhm.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg say? Civil unions was like skim milk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm interested if, and you talked a little bit about, finding services, care services for, for yourself or for an LGBTQIA plus elder who may be in another location. Do you have any like search terms or anything? I know you said that you would give one-on-one kind of
Yeah,
advice
it's
to
good.
people who were looking who contacted you, which is very generous. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Um, but are there certain organizations that you trust as referral organizations or ways of searching that you think are helpful for people who find themselves in that situation?
It's really a good. There's a lot out there, right? And you can go in
Mm-hmm.
the rabbit hole. Hmm. There's a lot commercially out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not to sound it. Start with the .org .govs
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to the .coms. But as far as search terms, maybe your geographic location. So
Mm-hmm.
Evanston Senior Care
Mm-hmm.
Agency,
Mm-hmm.
and see what starts going. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that there it's like the smell test, right? When you see it, you know it, kind of a thing. And then bouncing ideas off of trusted individuals is really
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Maybe that's an
Mm-hmm.
attorney that you know, or a neighbor, or somebody else that has been, or maybe yourself, Lorena,
Mm-hmm.
at the library, where somebody like, can you give me a second opinion on that? Or that's really
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Mm-hmm.
When you see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Um, Did you have any particular thoughts about, protecting? I know you work a lot with adoptions, with children, in various relationships. Um, do you have thoughts on, protecting children of same-sex relationships, whether that involves, one parent adopting another parent's biological child, whether the couple adopts a child together? Are there any things that are unique to sort of an LGBTQIA relationship that you have to consider with respect to any children that are involved in the relationship to protect their rights going forward and make sure your property ends up where you want with them?
Yeah, do your planning. I know that sounds like and estate planning is not compulsory, right? There is
Hmm.
no statewide data bank for all the people that do have powers of attorney in place.
Hmm.
Um, where, the area of law I practice is when the court has to appoint a legal decision maker, it's twofold. It's when the
Hmm.
person never did planning, so
Hmm.
then they've lost capacity to enter into estate planning documents, or they did, but they
Hmm.
maybe who they named is no longer available, whether they predeceased, they
Hmm.
decline
Hmm.
acting, or they
Hmm.
themselves have been determined incapable by a court,
Hmm.
and they don't name successors. That's where I see it. So I
Hmm.
don't want to be going down too much of a rabbit hole of that, but it's especially, we think the we think that we're invincible, right? And so you don't, oh, we'll
Hmm.
take care of it. It's something that is easy to put off. Um, and it is, right? It's hard to
Hmm.
talk about that, maybe to pay estate planning. I don't know. I hate to give out numbers because that's what people latch onto, but I don't know, $1,200. It's worth
Hmm.
its way in gold, in spades,
Hmm.
to know that you
Hmm.
have that protection in place, especially as um, with travel. I'm not trying to speak ill about
Hmm.
other areas, but this is the second time I mentioned the seminar I was participating in earlier, was talking about transgender bans, and particularly pointed out Florida. So
Hmm.
it's a pretty popular destination. You don't
Hmm.
want to be going there if you have an individual that is transgender.
Hmm.
And I can't speak to how they would treat same-sex couples.
Hmm.
Um, be mindful. For several years after my husband and I got married, I would carry around a small copy in my wallet of our marriage certificate.
Right.
Um, Fortunately, knock on wood, I've never had to, produce that. But there are some places you go to where
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that you're married to an individual of the same
Right.
sex.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was just
your original
actually just,
question, yeah, go
mhm.
ahead.
Yeah, go
Go,
ahead.
no, you
Sorry.
go. No. Your original question, I don't practice in family law, child custody,
Hmm.
so I can't speak too much about what
Hmm.
legal protections are in place. I would say do your planning as the
Hmm.
overall. You can
Hmm.
put provisions in your estate plan. I try to have my siblings do this.
Hmm.
You have kids. What happens if the something happens to the two of you and your three
Hmm.
kids? You know, which set of grandparents? Who do you want them to be placed with? Get that in
Right.
writing.
Hmm.
You might think it
Hmm.
never happens, but
Hmm.
and something happened to the two of you, then if you don't,
Hmm.
then you're automatically going to be in probate court for your
Hmm.
assets, your property, all of that. And it's going to take
Hmm.
12 to 16 months for your kids to get anything. And the reason I say 12 to 16 months is there's a 6-month claims period where if there was debts owed, there can be a claim filed. There are exceptions, but things can't come out, the
Hmm.
chunk of change is kind of locked up.
Hmm.
There are provisions within the Probate Act, which governs estates, such as distributions for situations that do involve individual disabilities or minors.
Hmm.
Um, but if you can avoid it by doing your planning, do it. And hopefully you never have to, that
Hmm.
situation never comes about where it's needed, but
Hmm.
knowing it's done is
Yeah.
like I said. Anyway, sorry, Lorena, go ahead.
No, no, that's all right. I had something just occurred to me as we were talking, and that is estate planning when it involves a beneficiary of the estate who may be transgender. Um, are there issues that you have seen or that you are aware of that where someone uses a person, their birth name, and names them, John throughout, John will get this, and John, they've changed their name now and their gender, they're Jane now. Um, does the court, and they pass away without ever having gone back and changed John to Jane, whether because they object or just because they forgot, that it's listed that way. Does that affect the individual's right to inherit? Does it affect how the
That's a
court treats them?
great question. No, that's really you're gonna get the lawyer response. I'm sure you as a form as a lawyer, you had former practicing, your spouse might
Hmm.
say it depends, right? It
Yes.
depends. Um, I would in Cook County,
Hmm.
no. Uh,
Hmm.
I think it would be incumbent on the attorney, whatever that arena is that's trying to help out, is to point that out in a sensitive manner.
Hmm.
And so for example, when I have a minor guardianship case, where, you know, uh, one of the parents passes away, unfortunately, and leaves
Hmm.
money in an account to a minor in their name, and they're under
Hmm.
18, you have to open up a guardianship estate so the bank can have the money go into an account specifically for that child. So when they
Hmm.
obtain the age of 18, it's theirs. And
Right.
there can be some things done to access it, but again, with specific court authority.
Hmm.
We have to, the reason I mentioned that is we have to have a birth certificate
Hmm.
and the death certificate of the parent. And the birth certificate may not, I haven't encountered this yet, but may not
Hmm.
match the name on the petition, who it's
Right.
about. So it would be incumbent on the lawyer then, maybe you attach
Hmm.
an exhibit A,
Hmm.
or you have some attachment or some separate
Hmm.
filing that provides a copy maybe of the name change if that was a legal
Hmm.
decree or something,
Sure.
and a way to get that before the court.
Hmm.
I would not be concerned
Hmm.
in Cook County that um, a judge would be too thrown off by that. I really
Hmm.
don't. It's a wonderful group of
Uh-huh.
individuals that are on the bench, I'm happy to say, and I don't want to give an all, you know, it's 100% sealed tight, but
Hmm.
no, I don't think so. But again, we're in a bubble, right?
Yeah.
So we
Hmm.
have to,
Hmm.
we acknowledge that. I
Hmm.
don't know if that answered your question, Lorena,
Yeah.
but I hope so a
Yeah.
little bit.
I'm just curious also, like, is there a way to sort of make your your estate plan neutral towards that possibility, because of course people may, choose
Good
at
point.
different points in their life what their a different identity.
Sure.
Is there a way to, the individual known as of this date as John Smith,
Use it,
or
use objective info.
a gender neutral,
Yeah.
the children of this marriage, or whatever, the children that we have currently as of this date. Just something that makes it more neutral, or allows for that possibility.
Yeah, I use objective data, use the date of birth,
Mm-hmm.
language that isn't. So for, in a petition for adoption, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you would put husband and wife, or
Mm-hmm.
not that you would, but I saw that for a
Mm-hmm.
long time. Now it's just spouses.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Maybe a copy of the marriage certificate.
Mm-hmm.
There, I know it sounds unusual, but
Mm-hmm.
THEIR, adult children.
Mm-hmm.
Adult children, right? So it's a little,
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying their sons and daughters, there's,
Sure.
for those
Mm-hmm.
individuals that maybe do not identify in one of
Mm-hmm.
those, but there is
Mm-hmm.
language out there, might be seen as broader.
Mm-hmm.
And there are practitioners that are more and more cognizant of it. I'm happy to, I know a lot of them, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy to relay that on.
Yeah.
Some aren't on board with it yet, and that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
Yeah.
we're very fortunate to be in the community that we are.
Yeah. And always good to ask those questions up front when you're
Oh, yes.
working with a practitioner, either of law or senior
Right.
services agencies, and get those questions out, directly, and make sure that
Absolutely.
you're on the same page.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Well, great.
Trying to think if there's
Let's see.
anything else that maybe I glossed over too much.
Mhm. Yeah, if
I
you
don't know,
if you
just
wouldn't
look.
mind sharing the slideshow with me afterwards, I can always share it with anyone who missed
Sure. I mean,
the
the five
program. So
slides that
just so that they can, just so they have your contact information
of
for those
course.
more specific follow-up questions.
Sure, especially since it wasn't functioning properly. I'm sure
That's
there
all
was
right.
something on
Yeah,
my
who
end,
knows?
and I hope
I
that Melon was
Who
not
knows
too
these
distracting.
days?
Yeah, who knows? Just other, being a member of the LGBTQIA population, and yes, I wear a lawyer hat, but
Hmm.
like I mentioned that tidbit about having a copy of my marriage certificate.
Hmm.
Um, there are places, that you have to be cognizant of it. I'll just, from my own personal experience, I'm so thankful, to be
Hmm.
practicing law in a community, and that I can't give an example. I don't have one where I felt discriminated against because of my sexual orientation. Not once.
Hmm.
Um,
That's great.
and right.
Hmm.
And I've also never observed a judge, and I truly mean that. I've never
Hmm.
observed a judge. And again, I'm in my little niche area,
Hmm.
but I've never once. A couple months ago, I had a case I was guardian ad litem, court appointed GAL, guardian ad litem,
Hmm.
and it was a minor guardianship case. It was out in Geneva, Kane, Kane County. And you might
Hmm.
think that, the farther out from Chicago you get, you might, this might be first impression,
Hmm.
having a case with a gay lawyer on it. But this
Hmm.
couple was same sex, and the
Hmm.
judge, older, um, cis white individual, former Chicago police officer, didn't
Hmm.
bat an eye. And I was surprised by that. I went in and I was like, oh, we'll
Hmm.
see how he does with this.
Hmm.
And he was fantastic. He was great.
Good.
So that's here.
Hmm.
And I see your heart. I feel for those that are not.
Yeah.
I can't really even imagine
Hmm.
how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very tough. We are definitely lucky to be where we are.
So
Um,
fortunate. Yeah.
yes. And I
Mhm.
really appreciate your time tonight and sharing all
Sure.
your expertise with us. Really appreciate you being here out here for Pride Month with us, and sharing that information.
Sure.
Um, so I don't see any other pending questions. So
Okay,
I think
great.
we can call this a night. But thank you again, and I will share those slides and your information
Right
for
now.
anyone else who is interested
I'm
in
happy to.
contacting you to follow up. So thank you so much again for
You're
being
so
here.
welcome, Lorena. And I hope that this was interesting, helpful
Yeah,
to a degree, and entertaining. And I want to thank everybody for being here, and thanks for the invitation. I look forward to,
absolutely.
I don't know, fighting the good fight or whatever we all do. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you,
a
Lorena.
wonderful
You
evening.
take
All
care. I'll
right.
send you that email, okay?
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.